and we're gonna recording. Oh, well, that's good. We're trying to go paperless, so we got the QR codes, and we're gonna, we're trying a whole bunch of stuff to kind of keep it fresh. So again, kind of already talked about it, but changing up our engagement plan. So again, these meetings aren't going to be the only way we communicate. We're going to be putting out newsletters. We're going to be, coordinating on project-specific conversations as needed. So, we have 2 meetings scheduled a year, but if something is really hot button and, needs kind of focused attention, we're going to have a special meeting just on that. So again, we're going to sort of just change up the format and try some new things, but we can always go back to the way things were. We're just, again, just kind of trying to keep it fresh. So, okay, I'm just gonna go old school. All right, so again, we've got me and Z. We're kind of running things, trying to coordinate. Z got a promotion in terms of focusing on the engagement and the inclusion of all communities. So she's making great efforts all around the city to sort of bring in voices that aren't at the table, that we've struggled to get a hold of, go and meet them at their meetings. So it's been a great work, and hopefully going to provide a lot of benefit. Also got our leadership team, got Stephanie, Katie, focused on development communications, and Jimmy in our operations. And then here in District 1, Anthony White in the room. Hopefully y'all got to meet him and his right-hand man, Devotee. And then some more system-wide folks. We've got our circles and plantings and forestry with Mike Sawyer. So again, we're always going to show this slide because it's really, we want to reinforce what this is really all about, which is really just about communication and connecting with the community. So we're here doing our operations. We're focused on, preserving Olmsted's legacy. These are neighborhood parks, so there's a lot of voices, a lot of conversation that needs to happen. These are city assets. So again, just opening those lines of communication so that, we could really build those partnerships. It's really what this is all about. And again, as I mentioned, we're changing up the structure a little bit, where we'll have our district-wide meetings again twice a year, and then again as we need to, as projects come up, we're going to have more project-specific meetings that we'll sort of schedule and advertise as we go. So moving on to the big action of in the Riverside district. Key project, hopefully you guys got to take a look at the boards in the back. So it's on the handout as well. So the city has secured funding to deal with a lot of the driving through the park issues, sort of secure the perimeters to really make the park safe for people and children, who want to enjoy the green spaces. Also deal with a lot of the vandalism issues of rutting up the parks and creating damage that then our operations team has to step up and take care of, so people aren't tripping and falling all over the place. So again, this is sort of a big map looking at the whole area, and we're going to kind of zoom in on project-specific areas that have come up previously through the OCA. So for starters, our operations area and the hockey rink parking. So we had talked about this. This was what the city was recommending, was just to sort of fortify at the edges back here. But we identified operationally, and we talked about this at this last meeting, that there are issues with during hockey events, hockey gatherings. People are parking back in front of our garage doors, in the back area where we're storing supplies. There's a lot of very important infrastructure back there that we don't want to get damaged. So we really need to secure people out of the park further down. So again, we've sort of just putting some crude graphics together. We're identifying creating a sort of basically a barrier at the back end of the parking lot where we'll basically, between having a automated gate, bollards and boulders, to create a barrier so that no vehicles other than authorized vehicles are getting back to the garage, around the garage, and around back, which is going to really allow, you know, a lot of the issues that we find back on the back side here, we're going to be able to resolve those with a little more control. So again, this is something that came out of our operations department, but you know, we've sort of talked about this. So again, we can circle back on any and all of these once I sort of pop through a few more focal areas. So again, looking here up at the Escher entrance off Tonawanda Street, came up at the last meeting that, you know, this is a kind of a major park entrance, and it's just kind of shabby looking. It's kind of awkwardly arranged. You know, again, this is that view in, sort of major park entrance. I know if we actually talk to the forester about whether he wants a tree growing into the traffic light, he's going to say no. I should probably remove that tree. But there again, just there's a kind of a sort of a makeshift driveway entrance. There's a bus stop. I mean, this could just be a much nicer place than it currently is. So again, in terms of their initial thoughts, basically create bollard or boulders and a bollard, allowing a vehicle, you know, a vehicle supposedly with authorization to drive in and then take the movable bollard out to get into the park. And talking about this internally, you know, we think we can certainly sort of keep things more at the edge of the park with the potential of making more and more enhancements down the roads and like a future project. But even talking about that, we could potentially even eliminate any vehicle access of any kind here, you know, coordinating with all levels of operation, just again, to make this a nicer pedestrian entrance. So again, recommending some modifications to the configuration there. But just to clarify, I only showed the bollards and the boulders we wanted to move around, but there is intention to put boulders all along the edge of Tonawanda to again fortify and keep vehicles out. Then the last area that we talked about on the north side, we'll go to the south side, was related to, again, the hockey parking. And again, keeping vehicles, you know, really, if you're going to way through. So again, continuing that barrier to the backside of the ice rink and the football area by heading down Hodling. So a couple things to note. There was some question about this loop. You know, it gets rutted up, people pull off, put two wheels on the grass, it turns into mud, gets muddy. Then they're coming out to this sort of awkward exit without a signal. So at minimum, we wanted to explore, so what's the history of this loop road? So I knew, looking at some old historic aerials, that the old casino building had a loop entrance off of Niagara Street. So I was like, oh, maybe that is a historic feature. But you look at that and you lay it on the current aerial, and while it's also a loop, it's not on historic alignment, has no relationship to the historic pathway and historic casino. So there really is no significance to that loop road itself. Additionally, you know, there was again the recommendation, again, sort of fortify along Hodling and then just put a straight line across over to the hockey rink. It's like, that's does the job, but you know, what else can we be thinking about? One thing is to sort of look back at the history of the original Olmsted plan, had that central concourse as a part of the northern half of the park. So this is an opportunity again to sort of not deviate too crazy and with regard to what we're trying to accomplish, which is keep vehicles out of the park, but reference back to some of that history and that central concourse. So preliminarily, the idea is reinterpret just in terms of that alignment, make this a little more interesting than just that for a hockey match. But if you eliminated it entirely and then turn this into parking, you could probably get about 5 parking spots back. So we could potentially suggest eliminating this entire loop, which is something that came up at one of the previous meetings, and not lose that much parking. Because I know parking is a premium. People are, parking all over the place when you have big events here. So that's again something to, I guess, put on the table here tonight with regard to that. So why don't we just stop there for a second on the north side of the park before we go to the south side of the park. Any thoughts on any of those 3 focus areas? Any concerns?
But you're saying no cars in the park?
No cars. So again, no cars on the grass. So basically keep cars off of pathways, keep cars off of grass. That's this project. Thank you. Yeah, and again, that's because when people aren't expecting cars, that's when they're not ready for them. That's when they're, there's the potential for a very, very tragic event, so we keep the cars where they belong, which is in parking lots, on streets. Hop out of your car and go enjoy the park. That's really the focus of this effort. And what the city's found is enforcement is challenged. Enforcement is struggling to keep up with the challenge. So the idea of literally, obstructing the access is where we need to go with this.
Like you've got a picnic and the picnic site is over by these trees. That's a long haul from carrying stuff.
That is true.
Wow.
That is true. Yeah. But the idea of driving along that path that children are walking along, when you're done with your event and then you're pulling up your vehicle and then driving on the path and going out, the risk versus the convenience is something. Again, we're talking pathways. So, for example, I think what you're describing, and again, while we're not suggesting this happen, the city is not proposing putting boulders around here. We haven't seen as much of an issue, but the idea is it's not legal for you to drive your car up to the shelter and drive out. Like that is against the park rules. So people do it. But again, those are the sorts of things that we're trying to deter.
That was my question. Will you line both sides of the building or just?
So again, that's a great point. Right now, the city is not suggesting fortifying the northern quadrant.
The northern side takes a beating because of the shelters. It's everybody pulls their car up, they empty, the cars are parked, there's 4 or 5 cars parked in the park at any given Saturday or Sunday. We want the size.
Okay.
So if you're gonna do it right.
All right.
It's gonna cause an issue. You can stop outside of the park, but as long as the shelters are there, you're having cars in the park.
Okay, would we say with regard to that putting them, so basically there's the River Rock Gardens, so kind of the lawn area along this section would be the most obvious connection point. Would we also want to say along Tonawanda as well? Is there a concern about coming in off of this entrance? Or do we want to phase this sort of thing?
Tonawanda Street with the new curbing, a little bit more difficult for vehicles to jump, not that they wouldn't.
Yep.
But Odeling is just, it's a straight shot right in the park.
Totally, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so the recommendation on the table is at minimum that bit right there. Or even, so do we want to just do all of Tonawanda? I mean, the capital money's here now, so. Yes, ma'am.
Two things, like you're talking about like natural rock boulders, like you have at Unity Island?
Yes.
Okay. You just might want to like think about how they're gonna look, maybe make it more like something where you could do plantings and make it beautified instead of just, because they're going to collect lots of trash, lots of litter, lots of bottles, lots of bottle caps, cigarette butts, try to do something that will make beautiful And then the other thing is you might also, as much as I hate to say sacrifice some of the grass, you might want to actually increase some of the parking availability. Like, you know, where that little loop is you talked about near the hockey rink on Niagara.
Yep.
You might wanna make a lane there of parking. It's, you know, it's a lot of beautiful grass, it's a beautiful view. But is there, you know, maybe you can increase the parking, add some parking along, you know, the little pathway that cuts through, whatever you call it. Because if you're gonna prevent people from parking on grass, which I totally applaud, you also kind of need to give people a place to park.
Right. Yeah, so I think one of the things that we can contemplate, so this project it's got funds dedicated to a purpose, and that purpose is, you know, keeping cars out of the park. So I think that's gonna be the phase one, but I think as we get people parking where they're supposed to, you know, we can continue to monitor things and sort of figure out, you know, how is the street parking affecting park access, how are, you know, where are all the places to park? What is the need? What is the demand? I think it probably is gonna need to be 2 steps.
You're gonna run into a big headache if you don't think those two things together.
I hear you, but I think this funding source isn't gonna pay for new parking lots. And I
Not
think,
having to move them.
and I think we're gonna wanna probably take a very hard look at where we don't put new parking lots in historic landscape. So I think probably gonna need to be 2-step, and you know, and we may learn some hard lessons, you know, in terms of, you know, what the issues that we're dealing with, but not gonna be at the sacrifice of safety and park damage.
And first,
It's a good point.
first you put on Niagara Street, right?
Yep.
In that section, so maybe just some signage.
Yep.
That indicates that they can park along the street would be helpful. And do you, in looking at where you're placing the boulders on the lower part of the italic, did you guys take into consideration or talk to your grounds crew to see where the most damage from vehicles is occurring every year?
So we've been getting these maps, you know, and responding to them almost in the same time as the public. So we've had some preliminary conversations with Anthony and then the team. And I think as we sort of wrap up the spots where the damage is information. We did talk about this area, this south one, and there really isn't an issue here. There's really nothing to get to. People want to drive.
And there's a lot of trees
Right.
there to
Yep.
prevent people from driving on it. So I'm thinking, you know, if you only have X number of dollars to spend on boulders and things like that, you know, maybe they're better off, you know, by where the shelter area is.
Yeah.
I mean, that would just make more sense.
Yeah.
But if I-
It's hard to hear what people are saying back there.
No, we can't hear very well back
I couldn't really hear the question.
Repeat the comments.
Comment.
Yeah, so it was,
My comment was that, you know, if there's a lot of trees on that lower area where they currently have the bollards or the boulders placed, but there's not, if there doesn't seem to be a lot of damage from cars driving in that area because there are a lot of trees, you're not gonna drive your car through a bunch of trees. Maybe they'd be better off just placing them up along where the shelter area is, because they only have X number of dollars to spend on this project. And, you know, put them where they're gonna do the most good and where they're gonna prevent less damage than they're currently seeing, that's all.
I mean, it keeps his hand up.
yes, sir.
Appreciate it. I just don't like cutting into people. So essentially, I think kind of what's laid out seems to be a pretty smart plan, because from the times that I've gone to the park, the main problems I don't see usually come from the parking. It's just people entering the park through their cars, because I believe by far Riverside has the most comprehensive parking when it comes to most parks. The park is a vertical park, and it's pretty much split into 3 sections. But for each of those sections, there's a place to park. As you can see, this is the northern section highlighted on the map. There's a large road cutting through it, but there's parking alongside it. If you're trying to go to somewhere like the basketball courts or the tennis courts, there's also the parking that's right next to the ice skating rink, which for most of the time is fairly empty. And then for the bottom of it, where the playgrounds are and where most of the baseball diamonds are, there's parking that comes right off the street right below. So I think the amount of parking in the park is fairly adequate for the amount of traffic it would typically get. It's just a matter of keeping the cars in those sections because, I mean, when it comes to the parking situation, it seems to be fairly taken care of.
Great, thank you. Yes, sir. Or yes, ma'am, sorry.
I have a concern regarding the gate we plan to install.
Yeah.
By the ice rink maintenance building. Now, if I'm on the tennis courts playing tennis, I cut through there to the ice rink to use the lavatory. Is that gonna prevent me from doing that?
As a pedestrian walking?
Right,
No, yeah, basically everywhere where there's barriers, all the walkways, so this is a 10-foot walkway, so it'd be a bollard put in the center. But you can walk either side of that, so yeah, there'd be gaps of around 5 feet on all pathways, yes.
Have you thought about doing 2 of those bollards so that ATVs can't zip through them?
So I'll recommend that, but there is a ADA accessibility standard the city has to hit. So I think there needs to be minimum I think it's 48 inches spacing between bollards, so. Yeah, so we'll look into that, but the ATVs I think that's gonna be an ongoing challenge. It seems like they are narrower than any barriers.
So far, that oil and the access road.
Yeah.
So I believe that should be some kind of gate put up here too. So if you don't have any kind of a big block in there, they're just gonna fly right up that.
Talk about here? So that, you can't read any of this stuff here, but that is the same sort of bollard treatment. So in the path, there'd be one of those removable bollards in there. So again, there'd be no gap wider than 5 feet. So no vehicles will be able to get through anywhere you see intervention markers. Here's the existing boulders. We stop here. So be a bollard, which is what that says. And then continuing the boulders over here, which is Ann's point, maybe this is lower priority than over here. So when we get into the funding, we can make sure that we're using them in the most efficient way.
I guess my concern is twofold. On Halloween, is there going to be with the park with access for the police or the fire to get through? Those
So-
are just I'm glad about the boulders finally
Yep.
across from the park. Woo-hoo. But I'm concerned about medical emergency help.
Yeah, so we
and police.
raised that came up at a previous meeting, and we mentioned that to the city. We will circle back on that, but I think what's going to have to happen is those emergency vehicles are going to have to know their way into a scene is going to be up through the ice rink parking lot, and that gate, they'll have access to open that gate, but they're going to have to know that's their way in. Yeah.
Because that's really, I think, safe.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, Z, is there something on Zoom?
Yep, so Elisa Hamilton has a comment. She says, I think that yes, we do need boulders along the shelter side of building. However, the issues of cars entering the other side going over the football field and onto the basketball court is more important now as there is a higher risk of injury to the
Yes, I agree.
Yep. Okay. That's a good point. Yeah. I do know that the city was really focused in on where where the major issues have been documented. I think it's a great note that, we are seeing issues over here. So we'll bring that up, but, hopefully we've got enough money to make everything safe but if not, then we'll go find more.
Unfortunately, I want all the voters, but I mean, having them by the shelter makes sense because you don't put them over there, the cars are just going. On one side, the cars are just going park on the other side.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Or
Yep.
they have all that, but have to do something.
Yep. And that's to Anthony's point in the back is this is going to be a maintenance challenge. I mean, this is
Yes.
a lot, when they were, just running their lawnmower, along, now they've got a lot of obstacles to weed whack around and make sure that we good. So this is gonna be, this is a maintenance commitment on our side, so we're gonna be figuring out the most efficient way to do it and keep it looking good, if not looking better, find a way to make it look
If you
nice.
spaced out the boulders and put maybe some wildflower plantings in, then that would be minimal, less maintenance maybe. I don't know, think about it.
Yeah, so we'll explore that again now, you know, those wildflowers aren't no maintenance, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
so
I
we're
know,
gonna coordinate that with our operations team. But, you know, what the city said is we can't space the boulders out more because we need to keep that minimum 5-foot space between the edge of each, so they're gonna have to be there. What we do in terms of management around them, you know, we're gonna find our way through there. But,
I think my main concern is we do need to keep the cars out because I've seen too many children, as I sit across from the car, too many children almost getting hit by good people trying to get picnics or something set up even on my side. And my concern is the safety of children first. You know,
Yep.
I don't care about anybody else, I care about the babies. Point blank. And,
get that in the minutes, that's an important thing to get down. Yes,
What kind of limitations do you have when it comes to like visual cues? Is there aesthetic conditions that you can't explore? You know, when it comes to like paint, and I know that adding paint, but sometimes if you can't narrow the walkway, get known that it's not for cars, can you visually do so in some fashion?
that's a good thought.
that's
Signage,
a good point. I think as we figure out our design standards for this, we're kind of letting the, you know, we're kind of doing this and gonna see how we sort of how it evolves over time in terms of, I feel like this is an important step to solve this problem, but in sort of that family of things we can do, I think we've found if you don't physically create the barrier, there is still going to be those offenders. So, but where we, you know, are not having those safety issues and we're just it's more of a, you know, policy enforcement. I think we could explore some clearer markations of, you know, you don't belong here. But I think what we found in the conversations are, you know, it's like people know they're not supposed to drive on the grass.
Yeah.
You know, but they do it anyways. So like those people who know they're not supposed to do it, don't do it. They don't need the barrier. But again, that's a great point, and I think we're going to develop some additional sort of design standards for those sorts of situations where we're just trying to make people aware, not, you know, create barriers. All right, just to keep this rolling, it was a great conversation. This is what this is all about. So now we're just going to quickly cover the south side. You know, again, it was just it's basically barriers all along where there isn't fencing. There was some concern expressed previously in making sure that we're doing what we need to do at both entrance areas into the playground area, because there is offenders coming through in these spots. So we'll take a closer look at that. And then as well, there's some questioning about the arrangement of things around the lighthouse monument. So relation to that, this isn't very easy to see, but just the notes coming in is making sure that we've got boulders on both sides of this path entrance and a bollard in the middle of the path to make sure that no vehicles are getting beyond this point here. Same thing, I guess we can have a little bit of a conversation about what's being proposed is two bollards and some boulders, but still allowing space for a vehicle to come in off of the road up to the building. So I know there is some pedestrian movement on this side of the building. So whether if you want to recommend that those bollards go out closer to the street, we're gonna need to suggest that more bollards go in across that entire width of asphalt. So that was something I wanted to make sure that we discussed. Is there is the fence line, this fence is going to get replaced, there's gonna be a nice new fence here. Do we want to continue that line where the fence is? And, you know, it'll require now more bollards into the asphalt. Because you put boulders on the lawn,
What's a
bollards
bollard?
on the asphalt. What is a bollard? Great question. So a bollard is a metal pole. You see them around a lot of things. These are removable bollards, so they're a metal pole with a sleeve with a lock on it. So our operations team and you know, anyone who officially needs to enter the park can slide the metal pole out, stands up about this tall in the middle of the pathway. Moderately decorative, and basically creates a barrier for vehicles to get beyond.
Not a fence, it's just a pole that comes up.
Yep, just a pole. Yep. So you can think of it as the fence post spaced out evenly along without the fencing on it.
There's two right behind our building. If you want to take a look at them, they're not removable ones, but they're very similar to the removable ones.
So again, that might be, that is, I guess, the recommendation I'm putting on the table, so give that some thought. And then again, if you recall, there was a whole sort of row of boulders going around the backside of the monument. But this monument itself, you know, as you all know, has a seat wall around it. So that is its own barrier. So if we don't have a problem with not preventing people from driving into the monument itself, which I'm not sure is a major issue, I'm not sure it's something, again, we need to concern ourselves with, maybe we do, and then we bring it all across the front. But if we are okay with that, then I think all we need to do is bring boulders up to the edge of the wall at one end of the pathway, and then on the other side, connect between there. You know, there is quite a bit of tree cover through here, but it's probably best to just put those 4 boulders in than not. But again, I think we can eliminate some of the infrastructure, save Anthony from a few boulders to mow around, and streamline that, unless, again, we want to make sure we're keeping people having no capability to drive into the monument. But again, we wouldn't be able to get past it. So those are the
what
2 questions on the table.
So 4 boulders going behind the tree line, what are those preventing people from driving out from what point to what point?
So they're basically stopping you from getting in. So there is the concrete wall.
Okay, assuming they went in and the roadway to the monument.
So once they get in here, there's a concrete wall all around them, on this circle. So they need a Bigfoot truck to get up over that wall. So basically, the fortification that the boulders are doing in the lawn, this monument kind of does for itself with that seat wall.
Right, but doesn't it just make more sense to prevent them from going in at that entrance area to the monument?
Right here,
No, down lower. Down at the street level.
down at the street level?
Yeah.
So we can, again, bring the boulders all along, head over like this. And then that would just mean putting in probably 6 or 7 bollards into the concrete there. So if that's what, this is kind of a cost savings approach,
Okay.
but if the idea is that we really want to keep people from even thinking about jumping the curb, then we should bring all of that out.
Well, do we see people, you gotta agree with this, do we see people going down there?
No.
That path, okay.
Okay, but I would like to suggest is they're going to trim the trees, so you have a view 6 foot, right? Because that, I just took that course.
The subtype.
Yes.
Wow.
So I want to make sure that you have that good view.
Yep.
Because if we can get some cameras set up at the by the house there, that would be, pure view then to the road. And then into the playground. I'm just-
Yep.
The course is going on.
That's on us. We're gonna get our forestry crew out there, get those branches up.
Yes,
It's steep. Yeah, so we'll do that. Maybe we would do that before springtime. Good time to trim trees. All right, so are people feeling okay with this at this point in time, or do we wanna bring it all the way down to the edge? Bring it down?
Back in the back part, I think that's a little unnecessary, but my cars swerving through the street.
Yeah, if there's trees already there.
Yeah.
They're not gonna drive through the trees.
Okay, but we do want to keep people out of the monument area.
Because we do have vendors sometimes occasionally pop up, that's up the standards there.
Okay,
oh, that's a good
all
point.
right, great. This is great. It's just the info we need. And then again, so we're having a bigger conversation, but part of this, we may be able to get some improved legibility, again, paint or other sort of guidance on the street here. So we're gonna make that comment in as well.
Yeah. On
Brian?
that-
Hey, Brian,
Yes,
it's Joe and Mary Ann. What are we speaking about here? We're talking about bringing the bollards down closer to the corner or the rocks and then putting bollards across the opening?
yes. So if you can see the red circle on the drawing. So right now, what the city recommended was the boulders going around the backside of the monument. It honestly seemed overdone in terms of that, if we're just trying to keep people from going beyond the monument, but the recommendation was we
Yeah,
need to keep off the plaza entirely. Conversation in the room.
so there's currently a fence around the pool. Can we just connect the fence to the end of the wall with boulders and then something similar down Tonawanda Street? And then bollards across?
Yes, yeah, I mean, we can either, not that we want to really design right here in the room, but if you can see where the purple line is, that would
Right.
bring you to the monument. So that would be, leave some green space on the outside. And we could do that on both sides and then bollards right across, sort of closing out the circle. Or we can bring all of that straight up to the edge of the road.
Rather than having bollards right at the corner, I mean, that wall does, I mean, if the seat wall continues down towards the corner. And couldn't we use that as an endpoint and, just, keep bollards back from the corner a little bit? And then finish it off with rocks all across the grass.
You also might have to have the, somebody accessing the pool for management and cleaning.
Yeah, but you can do that. There's a gate over there somewhere.
Okay, there's a thing right here.
I think that access to the pool, I mean, I will confirm this with the city, but I think it happens off of Crowley Avenue. In terms of pool access.
Yeah,
And then they would walk in from there. But again, that'll be something that the city will have to make their own comments on,
They come in right there.
right there at the shelter.
Yeah.
That's where they come.
Have you
Okay.
considered interspersing the bollards with benches? Because a bench could serve the place of a bollard, but it's also hospitable to somebody in the park. Not necessarily sleeping, but you know what I mean, sitting.
Yeah, we can look into that. So where the bollards go is typically within pathways. So you
No, I
would,
meant the boulders.
The boulders.
But one thing we're talking about at Unity Island, where we need these very badly,
Hmm,
is there's a thing where they're logs, but they're carved into benches.
mhm.
So you could use, and they kind of would be nice for the, natural look. So it's not necessarily one of those typical metal benches, but like just a huge log that is carved with a seat in it.
Except the biggest issue that they're having right now is people congregating there, including the homeless people going through their clothes and going through garbage and congregating in the nighttime. So I don't know that we want to put any more benches to get more people congregating.
I can answer that. We have a lot of homeless people on the benches at night. and they go down by where the cemetery is in that fence along there. That becomes almost like a little tent city going at night. And yeah, you're right, Mary, and that is a big problem. And would you want them near the playground? See, again, I go, because I saw a homeless woman attack 2 kids last year and start really whipping them.
Mhm.
So we had to intervene. So I don't want to see that. We have to be careful with our children.
Okay, but I mean, it's an interesting point. We can, again, through our sort of design guidelines, contemplate whether there's a wooden version of a barrier of some kind that's not about. I do know where we have put logs in some other parks just as temporary logs, because they're round, they're easier to get rolling. So that would be something we would definitely not want to have with the potential of someone rolling.
We have to shave off the bottom.
Yeah, so.
We had people
you know,
steal
where
logs
would
out
get
of
them?
our, we've had people steal logs out of our community garden to burn them in their fire pit. So
Yeah, so I guess it's just something there's some pros as you're describing, but some cons, we'll have to sort that out. But we'll get it and we'll explore that a little further. We have gone on quite a lengthy conversation here about this one topic, which is great. But I do want to close this out, cover a couple of things real quick, and eat into a little bit of our open house at the end. But I think unless people feel like they haven't gotten their voice heard on the perimeter security combo, I think we'll move it along.
So you're saying
Final
no cars
thoughts?
in the park?
no cars in the.
No cars in the green space. So, I mean, the park roads, the parking lots, that's where people can drive in, park and get out, but green spaces, pathways, that is where the effort is here.
Parking, will they be parking on either street?
Yes.
There is parking on Niagara
There
Street,
is
yeah.
parking.
So as a part of this, I think we'll clarify the parking rules, parking signage, make sure the proper signage is there so people know they can park. I think people sometimes, if they don't see a sign, they don't want to get a ticket. Even though, what they should say is if it's not properly signed, the city can't give them a ticket. That's the way they should go with it, but I guess we should just clarify where parking is, so that people know all the options they have, which I think is more than they realize.
Mhm.
All right. So with that, again, we are fast approaching, we are at 7:00.
You
This
can
is a
talk
little-
about the splash pad.
Yeah, so that is a conversation. I guess, see if you can get your ink off the page. Not gonna be able to dive in too deep on this issue, but I do want to kind of level set with everybody based on the conversation we had here last meeting, which is, during the COVID era, post our 5-year plan, the city struggled to get lifeguards. A lot of the pools were closed, and it sort of was a panacea within the community, that this pool, if it requires lifeguards to open, a splash pad would be potentially a better direction to head, more accessible, and kind of we can sort of attack a variety of the challenges within this area, in addition to the safety along Crowley. So we went through a process of talking about this and identified a whole family of concerns and thoughts. There were a couple meetings on site where we sort of talked through this, and this is a pretty major capital project. But where I went a little too far, got a little too excited, was that the pool facilities is sort of outside the purview of the Conservancy in terms of our operations. We have no role in the maintenance, the management, the investment in these facilities, and basically taking this the next step. The city has asked that they wait for their consultants to sort of lead us down that road to sort of plan out this major capital project. I think it's clearly in the mind of the city and everyone here that this is the capital project priority for this community. But for me to sort of get everybody lathered up at these meetings was something that the city Parks Department, asked me to just sort of take a step back, let them get their ducks in a row from a funding standpoint, and then we'll move this conversation forward. So we've got a lot of great information that I'm going to pass along. But in terms of me taking us down this road, we're going to slow it down a little bit and let the city go. So Joe, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I spoke to Andy Rabb and the administration, and there is still an absolute commitment for the splash pad for numerous reasons. But as Brian said, it would ultimately be the city that would be doing everything. So anything that we would do here would end up being repeated because the city has to do it basically. So Andy Rabb has been supportive and I would say committed to having future meetings on this. We all know that whenever something happens in North, we do a GNPA type meeting as the sort of the governing body, if you will, and then the city shows up and other people will show up. So we would continue to do that. So it's, I understand completely what Brian's saying, and I understand exactly, where the city's coming from as well.
Yeah. So
Oh,
we
I have
look
a quick
forward.
question. Are there any meetings scheduled?
No, there's not. It wouldn't be until probably, I don't know, Mary Ann. I didn't talk to
Okay.
Andy.
No, I'm just wondering if it gets on the schedule and what the game is going to be for this year versus next year. Because if it's a capital improvement, it's probably not going to happen until next year. So is there any plan for prioritizing lifeguards for us maybe? To get at least one of the pools open?
I've requested that, as well, because I told them that we took a pretty bad hit. I think it's gonna depend on how many lifeguards they actually have. I can't remember the exact number, but I think they need 60 some in order for all the pools to open, and they've only had a third of that number.
Yeah.
The last couple of years. So, hopefully, and I will do whatever I can to get at least one of the pools open, but if there's only 11 lifeguards, it's gonna, because they have to open up I think there's 2 indoor pools that have to be open first, and then it goes from there.
Is there a reason why those need to be opened first?
There was, and I can't remember it offhand, to be
Okay.
honest with you.
I mean, even if it was limited hours, it would be better than nothing.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Better than the lighthouse.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay, so yes.
The little kids have no voice here, but if I was a little kid, I'd much rather have a pool than a splash pad.
But if
Yeah.
you can't get lifeguards to man your pool, so it doesn't open for 4 years, the little kids are losing out until they're big enough to have their moms take them to a bigger pool that is open, which isn't even ours. So a splash pad, they don't have to have lifeguards at, so it would be open every summer.
As a mom, I'd say I'd much rather a splash pad, in my opinion. But
I
that's
have
personal.
I have to say, if you have a pool, a little pool like that, and some child does his business in the pool, that pool automatically closes down for a full day, has to be emptied, disinfected and refilled. And a lot of people don't know that about that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good thing though.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you're saying that the city is gonna be leading on the splash pad business, but I just wanted to mention that, I went to Louisville many years ago, and took my son and a whole bunch of the other family to this amazing splash pad that they have there. If you've ever been to it, at least Google it, and it is very interesting because it's not just water shooting. It's got little historic features and play elements. Like the one that we have at MLK Park is really beautiful now, but it's kind of just basic. The one that's down at LaSalle that I don't know if it's still gonna exist, if it's remodeling, it's just basic. But the one they have in Louisville is really imaginative. So this could be a really cool opportunity to make like, Niagara River, birds and fishes, like shooting fountains. Make it cool, make it a destination thing. So
That's great. Those are great ideas. Yeah, and
Joe's listening.
I don't know if, our staff did take a trip down to Louisville to go to some of the Olmsted parks down there. I'm not sure. I didn't go on that trip, so I didn't see, but we'll look into that and I'll pass that information along to Andy as well. Great recommendation. All right, so again, it's quick, this is quicker conversation, I'd say, but, we are in the process of implementing the improvements to Diamond One. We have replaced the backstop, that is fully done. The work that needs to happen in the spring is more related to rebuilding some of the field. So as soon as weather breaks and the contractors can't get out there, all those infield renovations will happen in the spring, hopefully very quickly. And, the goal is obviously not to impact any league play, but weather will make that decision for us. Other than the things we've talked about and the things in the open house, any park issues that people want to get on the table for
Bathrooms?
the good of the order? Bathrooms, access to bathrooms, open bathrooms.
Yes.
All right, that is a good point. That is one aspect of the shelter complex conversation. But yeah, all of the bathrooms within the park, I know our staff struggles with this as well. They're associated with the facility that has an operator. So they're all there are multiple bathrooms in the park, but they're not always accessible all the time. So that's a great conversation for us to sort out.
Takes care of the bathrooms. Do they buffer them?
It depends. So there's a concessionaire relationship with the Patrick's Heroes, takes care of the bathroom in the ice rink. The football club takes care of the bathroom off the concession stand on the outside of the ice rink. And the city of Buffalo, when the pools are open, opens up the bathroom with the playground. So there's
They
kind
open
of
it, do they
different
take
groups
care of it?
taking care of it. Sorry?
They may open it, but do they clean it?
I think that is on the lifeguards' roles and responsibilities is taking care of that bathroom.
So if the pool isn't open and there's not a football game going on and the ice rink isn't open, there's no bathroom for the people on the tennis court.
That's true. So that's where the porta potties come in, unfortunately.
And where are they?
Anthony, can you help me out? I think,
We have
Totally.
one by ice rink parking lot. There's one, Portland Street. A little horseshoe roundabout area. We have one down by the shelter, playground area by the access driveway.
yeah, but that is a great point, that in terms of just general, some of the other parks in the city, and the Conservancy's on site, those bathrooms are open, but it's just a different situation here, so. But a good point, and we'll dive in on that. Any other Riverside issues people want to raise? Moment? All right. So just a couple things. The ice rink is open, hooray. And I did just want to note for people that on the Hatchet's Heroes website, on their Rec Times app, you can see the public skating times. I don't know actually if these are consistent week to week, but every day for a couple hours there is public skating. So certainly check out that website to follow along.
About getting more access after school and on weekends when people can use it.
So I think
I know-
the fast change would be, I think, talking directly with Hatchet's Heroes, but I know the city renews that relationship with them. So on a proactive basis, I think you could talk to the city, but on a sort of moment to moment, I think you could work with Hatchet's Heroes. Certainly when there's nothing on the schedule, I would think, that could be adjusted.
The first quarter, when they first opened, and for the first quarter of the year, there were no hours that were outside of school times that were open skate. This quarter, they now have, I think there's some time on Saturday that there's an
no
open skate, but there's no evenings, kids are in school or aftercare up until 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and then it's home dinner, and there's no skating after that. And we need to do better. And I understand that they're only required to give us 10 hours a week of open skate time for the community. But give us 10 hours that our families can use it.
Good note.
And I was told they don't answer their phone and don't return their messages. I know someone who's been trying to get in touch with
Okay. Well, I wish I could.
Email? Do you have email?
I'll work on
Try email.
that. I'll work on that. Volunteer events, so coming up in June, one of our calendars, got some volunteer opportunities in Riverside Park to do some cleanups. We're gonna be doing some bench project. Is this located in Riverside or is this a general bench project? That's new?
Yeah, me and Chrissy have been talking about it. So
Okay.
we're hoping you guys are all invited to come out and stay in the benches at Riverside. There's a lot of benches, so if anyone sees in the city, I'm also the point of contact as well. So if you're in touch with me, we want to talk more about benches.
All right. But yeah, so Christy is a great point of contact. She will return your emails, so you can contact her whenever. And then just quickly wanted to just sort of note that, you know, we've got the group together, really appreciated the consistency in terms of the group with our last 5-year plan, 2020 to 2024. Well, we gotta start planning for our next 5-year plan. So what we're doing, gonna sort of mimic the same process for those of you who were able to participate, sort of the 3 rounds of meetings, survey, online work. And we're gonna update that. We're gonna really get ourselves started, basically through the entire year of 2024. But in advance of that, and the key to making good decisions is good data. So we're even going to start the process sooner than that, and going to be this summer, looking to recruit some volunteers to train them to participate in some park user data collection. Starting this summer and going through next summer, really help us get the best information about how people are using the park, you know, the things that need to be improved, the things that people think need to be improved but are just fine, you know, that on the ground data is really going to be helpful to help us make decisions. And I think I can say with confidence up in our Riverside community, as we gather this data and as we look at the data, the demographic data, the need for investment in our parks, we're going to see in the next 5-year plan some real focus on trying to make some major headway here up in Riverside Park. So again, that data, getting it together, getting our demographic information together, getting our needs assessments done, and then going through the process of reviewing the last 5-year plan, making refinements about the next 5-year plan, getting more input, planning our plan, and announcing our plan. Should be a fun year in 2024, but only if we are organized and we get all our work done in getting ourselves to the start line.
Will you also be collecting any environmental data, like, you know, pollinator counts, birds inhabiting the trees and the park, things like that?
I think we'd be open to finding a good partner who could help us with that. I think that's certainly something, certainly levels of sophistication in terms of, you know, those type of counts that I'm not sure we've got the expertise on staff to take on, but I think we'd be happy to talk about it further. And I know it's the Pollinator Conservation Association, so I think we've got this year to kind of figure out, yeah, all the data we want to gather, and you know, we'll do our best to basically get all the information. Great. All right, sounds good. All right, so with that, again, the goal is, you know, we love you guys being in the room. Please invite more people. Please bring this information back to your groups. You can reach out to Z for one-on-one meetings if you want to talk further about how to make more connections. Again, we've got our Facebook group. We're gonna, again, diversify how we're communicating out to you month to month. Keeping you abreast of the projects coming up and any sort of new information we have. And going to our website, Facebook, and contacting Z's the way to go. And I think that brings us to the end. So anytime we have left, we got 12 minutes. We'll be in the back of the room. Happy to talk further. But thanks for your attention and thanks for coming out. I think we probably got more pizza too, so appreciate it. We've got a well parking here. You know, counting the parking spots, the short people else. You got pretty good here.
Well, I mean, like, if they want more, that's a little bit excessive. You'll park along on one street, if you park everywhere. They want more parking spots, they're parking cars into the spot. It's a good point.
Well, it's not cost here. That was brilliant. So,